Today's tech news moves fast, but understanding it shouldn't be hard. That's why Snarful Solutions Group brings you Connecting the Dots, where we break down what's happening in tech and why it matters to you. Now, let's dive in with your hosts.
Welcome to Connecting the Dots. It is Wednesday, July 2nd, 2025, and I'm Alex. Great to have you with us as we piece together what's happening in tech.
And I'm Morgan. Always good to be here, ready to unpack some of these big stories.
Absolutely. Okay, before we jump in, just a quick check on what's happening outside. Here in Sacramento, well, it's definitely summer. Hot one today, looking at a high of 96. Hope you're finding ways to stay cool.
Yeah, definitely hydrate. And looking nationally, it's quite a weather story unfolding. We're seeing some serious heavy rain, potential floods across parts of Arizona, New Mexico, Florida, North Carolina, and Virginia.
Right, and that's especially worrying for those areas that have had recent rains,
Yeah.
Very vulnerable to flash floods.
Exactly. And then on the flip side, fire weather is a concern out west and up north. Gusty winds, low humidity.
Yeah.
That means parts of the northwest U.S. and central Alaska are on alert today. So, yeah, definitely keep an eye on your local conditions.
Good advice. Okay, let's take a quick peek at the markets for July 2nd. The Dow Jones, well, it's closed down just a tiny bit, just under 44,441. Lost about 15 points.
Yeah, but still holding on to decent gains for the week overall, about, nearly 1%?
That's right, plus 0.95% weekly. The S&P 500 actually managed a small gain today, up about 16 points to close over 6,209. Also positive for the week, though, a bit less so.
Okay, and Bitcoin, still marching upwards.
Oh, yeah. Big jump today. Closed strong over 108,531. That's up more than 2,800 points, or 2.68% just today. And it's up nicely for the week, too.
Well, keeps things interesting, that's for sure.
It certainly does. All right, now, something a little closer to our hearts here. Our San Francisco Giants. Oh, that was a rough one yesterday.
Ugh, don't remind me. Losing 2-8 to the Diamondbacks. Yeah, that stung.
It really did. Zach Gallen for Arizona, he was just on fire. And Randall Grichuk had a big night, too, homer and all.
Yeah, just not our game. Simple as that. Hopefully they bounce back.
Fingers crossed. Always the next game. Okay, enough about baseball woes. Let's shift gears. It's time to get into today's main tech stories from our Morning Star report. Let's connect some dots.
Yeah, it's always fascinating to see how these different pieces, fit together and show us bigger trends.
Okay, first up, this one involves Apple and its big push into India. It seems they've hit a significant bump. Foxconn, their main iPhone assembler, has actually recalled over 300 Chinese engineers and technicians from its factories in India.
Yeah, and this happened just in the last couple of months. It's really interesting because it directly impacts Apple's whole China Plus One strategy.
Right, explain that a bit. That was driven by...
Well, it was driven by a few things. You had the U.S.-China trade tensions, remember the tariffs under Trump, and then, of course, the massive supply chain chaos during the pandemic.
Yeah.
It made relying so heavily on China look pretty risky.
So diversify. And India seemed like the prime candidate.
Exactly. Apple had really ambitious plans. They were talking about boosting production in India to 25 or even 30 million iPhones next year in 2025. That's a huge number.
So pulling these key engineers out now, that feels like more than just a small hiccup. What's the real impact here for Apple and, for someone thinking about their next phone?
Well, it probably won't stop production cold, but it's definitely expected to slow things down and reduce efficiency. Think about it. These Chinese engineers, they have years of experience. They were there to train local teams, optimize the assembly lines.
They're the experts.
Right. Tim Cook himself has often praised the skill and speed of the Chinese assembly workforce. So the big question now is, can India ramp up and maintain Apple's really high standards for quality and efficiency without that direct hands-on expertise? At least, in the near term. It's a major challenge.
Makes sense, like trying to scale up a complex operation without your most experienced guides. And isn't there maybe another layer to this, some speculation about why they were recalled?
Yeah, there is. It touches on, geopolitics again. The thinking is that maybe Chinese authorities are putting some pressure on kind of quietly limiting the transfer of technology, equipment, and even skilled people to countries like India.
Tech nationalism playing out.
Pretty much. There was that report back in April, remember? Chinese officials supposedly blocked an Apple supplier from shipping key machinery for iPhone 17 trials to India. So this recall fits that pattern, potentially.
So for the listener, this isn't just some abstract supply chain issue. It could mean delays, maybe even affect costs down the line for the next iPhone.
It could. It suggests that diversifying out of China might be slower, maybe more complex, maybe even more expensive than initially hoped. It's a global chess game affecting the tech in your pocket.
Wow. Okay, shifting from Apple's supply chain to Microsoft. Our second story is about layoffs there, and this one's a bit of a head-scratcher.
Right. So Microsoft is planning to cut around 9,000 jobs. That's, less than 4% of their total workforce?
Yeah, and it comes after they already cut about 6,000 back in May and another 300 or so in June. Washington state alone saw nearly 2,000 cuts recently.
But here's the twist, the part that seems counterintuitive. Microsoft is doing incredibly well financially.
That's what gets me. Their latest numbers were huge. Net income up 18% year over year to almost $26 billion. And revenue hit $70 billion, up 13%.
Exactly. So they're not cutting jobs because they're losing money. Far from it.
So why? What's the official line and what might be happening underneath?
Well, Microsoft says it's about streamlining, reducing management layers, cutting redundancy, making things more efficient to position for the future. It's similar language to what we heard from Amazon and Meta during their big cuts.
Optimizing, even when profitable. Okay, but what does that mean for people? I mean, these are real jobs across the board, but focused on management. What's the connection for someone maybe working in tech or just watching the job market?
That's the crucial question. And it leads us to, the elephant in the room, AI. Microsoft hasn't explicitly said we're cutting jobs because of AI.
But CEO Satya Nadella recently mentioned that AI is already writing up to 30% of the company's code. 30%.
Wow.
So you connect those dots. Layoffs focused on streamlining and management, happening alongside rapid AI adoption that can automate tasks, even complex ones like coding. It strongly suggests AI is a major factor, even if unstated.
So it's not just about saving money now, it's maybe about fundamentally changing how work gets done, even in highly profitable companies.
I think that's exactly it. It signals a potential future where AI doesn't just help workers, it might actually replace certain functions, particularly in management and maybe even core technical roles. It forces us to think about what skills remain uniquely human and valuable as AI gets more capable. It's a profound shift underway.
Definitely something to chew on. Okay, finally, our third story takes us into the world of tech, finance, and manufacturing, but again, with real-world implications. It's about Luxshare.
Right. Luxshare Precision. They're a huge Apple supplier, maybe best known for assembling AirPods, and they're planning a big IPO, an initial public offering, in Hong Kong. How big?
They're aiming to raise over $1 billion. They've got major banks involved, China International, CITIC, Goldman Sachs. It's a significant move.
Okay, so why do this now? What's the goal beyond just raising cash?
Well, their ambition's pretty clear. They want to massively expand their camera module business. They're basically throwing down the gauntlet, challenging the current big players in that space like Sunny Optical and O-Film Tech. They want a much bigger slice of the smartphone camera market.
Interesting. Especially since, as we've discussed, Apple suppliers generally have faced some headwinds lately, right? Trade tensions, tariff threats lingering.
Exactly. It's happening against that backdrop. But this IPO shows Luxshare is betting big on growth, specifically in high-value components. And doing it in Hong Kong is also notable.
Why Hong Kong? Is that significant?
It could be. It might signal a desire by some major Chinese tech companies to tap into capital markets closer to home, maybe reducing reliance on, say, U.S. exchanges. Plus, there are market dynamics. Some analysts, like at Goldman Sachs, think a strengthening Chinese yuan could boost Chinese stocks, making IPOs there more attractive. They estimated every 1% the yuan rises against the dollar could lift Chinese equities by 3%.
So it's a strategic financial play as much as an industrial one.
Definitely.
And for the listener, what's the takeaway? Why should we care about a component supplier's IPO?
Because these are the companies making the critical parts inside the devices you use every day. Luxshare expanding its camera business could lead to more competition, maybe innovation, maybe different pricing structures for things like your next iPhone camera. It's about the behind-the-scenes battles for market share and technological edge that shape the final product.
It all connects back. Okay, so let's quickly tie these threads together.
Yeah, we saw Foxconn pulling engineers from India, potentially slowing Apple's diversification efforts due to, complex geopolitical and operational issues.
Then we looked at Microsoft's layoffs happening despite record profits, raising big questions about efficiency drives and the growing role of AI in reshaping even white-collar jobs.
And finally, Luxshare's ambitious IPO in Hong Kong, signaling a major play for dominance in the crucial camera component market, right within the complex global tech supply chain.
So 3 distinct stories, but as always, they're not really separate, are they?
Not at all. They show how global trade, jobs, AI, corporate strategy, finance, it's all interconnected, and it all ultimately affects the technology you rely on. Helping you see those connections, that's what we aim to do here.
It's all about connecting those dots. We're here to help at Snarful, so reach out on our website if you have any more questions.
That's a wrap on today's top stories. Remember, tech doesn't have to be complicated, and we're here to help connect the dots. If you've got questions or want to learn more, visit us at snarful.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.